In the first part of our discussion, we explored the historical and biblical foundations of the end times. We saw how past generations believed they were witnessing the final days, how apocalyptic predictions have repeatedly surfaced throughout history, and most importantly, how Jesus himself described the signs of the end in Matthew 24. However, we also learned that wars, natural disasters, and moral decay alone are not the definitive signs of the end times. These events have always existed. The true indicator, according to Jesus, is the global preaching of the gospel. This leads us to a crucial question. Is our generation truly different? Are we now witnessing the conditions necessary for the final fulfillment of biblical prophecy? In this second part, we will dive deeper into modern-day developments that may be setting the stage for the events described in the book of Revelation. We will explore the rise of global evangelism, the emergence of a world system that aligns with the rule of the Antichrist, the impact of technology, artificial intelligence, and surveillance, and the final prophetic events leading to Christ's return. If the first part of our study laid the foundation, this second part will examine how the pieces are now falling into place. Are we closer than ever before to the fulfillment of Revelation's prophecies? Let's continue this journey and uncover the next chapter in the prophetic timeline, the role of global evangelism. One of the most significant aspects of biblical prophecy regarding the end times is the universal preaching of the gospel. While wars, natural disasters, and political upheavals are often seen as signs of the end, Jesus made it clear in Matthew 24 verse 14 that the defining event will be the worldwide spread of his message. And this gospel of the kingdom will be preached in the whole world as a testimony to all nations, and then the end will come. This prophecy implies that before the final events unfold, the entire world must have access to the teachings of Christ. But what does this mean in practical terms? Has this prophecy already been fulfilled, or are we still in the process of reaching this global milestone? The challenge of global evangelism. Despite centuries of missionary work, large portions of the world still have little to no knowledge of Christianity. A staggering number of people, particularly in countries like China and India, know as little about Jesus as many in the West know about Confucius. For example, the document recounts a conversation with a young Chinese woman who had never heard of the Bible. She thought the word referred to Babylon. This highlights a major obstacle. While Christianity has reached many nations, much of the world remains largely unaware of its core message. If we were to rely solely on traditional missionary work, this task would seem nearly impossible. The scale of the challenge is immense. Billions of people still live in regions with restricted religious freedom, where Christianity is either suppressed or unknown. Technology and the spread of the gospel. One of the key differences between past evangelistic efforts and those of today is technology. Unlike in previous centuries, where missionaries had to travel physically to remote places, the internet, social media, and global communications now allow the message of Christ to spread instantly across borders. The document suggests that God himself will provide a way for this prophecy to be fulfilled, whether through technology, supernatural events, or other unforeseen means. Regardless of how it happens, the Bible guarantees that it will occur before the end comes. The responsibility of believers. Even though God's plan will ultimately be accomplished, this does not mean that believers are passive observers. Jesus commanded, "Go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit." Matthew 28 verse 19. This means that every Christian has a role in spreading the gospel, whether through direct evangelism, supporting missionary work, or utilizing digital platforms to share biblical teachings. The message must reach every nation, tribe, and people before the prophecy is fulfilled. Conclusion: a prophecy in motion. The universal preaching of the gospel is the only specific sign that Jesus said must occur before the end. Unlike wars or natural disasters, which have always existed, this prophecy is unique to the final generation. The challenge remains great, with billions still unaware of Jesus. Technology has accelerated the process, making global evangelism more possible than ever. Every believer has a role, ensuring that the gospel reaches all corners of the world. If we are truly in the end times, then our generation may be the one to see this prophecy fully realized. In the next section, we will explore how the rise of the Antichrist and global control may signal the final stage of history. The rise of the Antichrist and global control. One of the most debated and mysterious aspects of biblical prophecy is the rise of the Antichrist. According to the Bible, this figure will emerge in the final days and establish a global system of influence and control, deceiving many and opposing the true teachings of God. The book of Revelation, chapter 13, describes a powerful entity that will dominate the world politically, economically, and religiously. This Antichrist will not act alone. He will be supported by a system that enforces his authority over all peoples, nations, and languages. A global leader, not just a dictator. Contrary to some common assumptions, the Antichrist will not be a simple dictator or military ruler. Instead, he will be a charismatic leader who gains worldwide admiration and acceptance. Revelation 13 verse 3 states, "The whole world was filled with wonder and followed the beast." This suggests that the Antichrist's influence will be so great that nations and individuals will willingly submit to his rule. Unlike historical tyrants who seized power through force, this leader will likely be seen as a solution to the world's problems, offering peace, stability, and unity. Economic and social control. One of the most alarming aspects of the Antichrist's rule is his economic power. Revelation 13 verses 16 to 17 states, "It also forced all people, great and small, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive a mark on their right hands or on their foreheads, so that they could not buy or sell unless they had the mark, which is the name of the beast or the number of its name." This passage indicates a global economic system in which no one can participate in commerce without submitting to the Antichrist's authority. This level of control suggests a universal economic order, where traditional financial independence no longer exists. The document raises a crucial question. Are we seeing the foundations of this system being laid today? Modern-day parallels, the power of technology. One of the striking observations made in the document is the role of technology and artificial intelligence in shaping a world where control over people's actions is more possible than ever before. Algorithms dictate online behavior, deciding what content people see and shaping public opinion. Artificial intelligence advances could make independent thought less necessary, as machines begin to process information for people. Economic systems are becoming increasingly digital, reducing personal financial control. Surveillance and tracking technologies can monitor individuals in ways that were never possible before. While these developments are not yet the fulfillment of prophecy, they demonstrate how a future global leader could achieve total control with the right tools in place. The spiritual dimension of the Antichrist's rule. Beyond political and economic power, the Antichrist's control will also be spiritual. Revelation states that all the inhabitants of the earth will worship the beast, meaning that his authority will extend beyond politics and finance. He will demand loyalty that conflicts with God's commandments. The document emphasizes that this final conflict will be a battle over worship and obedience to God's laws. The mark of the beast is described as a counterfeit of God's commandments, similar to how ancient Jewish traditions involve keeping God's law as a sign on the hand and forehead. This suggests that the Antichrist will not just seek power. He will demand ideological and religious allegiance, forcing people to choose between faithfulness to God and submission to a corrupt global system. Conclusion: a world preparing for global authority. The rise of the Antichrist, as described in the Bible, will not happen in isolation. The world must first be conditioned for a leader who offers peace, stability, and solutions, but ultimately leads people away from God. Global economic, technological, and political systems are aligning in ways that could allow such control. The influence of artificial intelligence and surveillance raises new ethical and spiritual concerns. The final conflict will be about worship and obedience to God's commandments. As we continue this study, the next section will examine how modern-day developments in governance and technology may be setting the stage for the fulfillment of these prophecies. Modern-day parallels to biblical prophecies. As we analyze the rise of the Antichrist and global control, a critical question emerges. Are we already seeing the foundations of this system today? While past generations have witnessed wars, crises, and technological advancements, the modern world presents unique developments that closely align with biblical prophecies. The document highlights several aspects of our era that could be interpreted as precursors to the final events described in the Bible. Among these, the rise of artificial intelligence, AI, the power of algorithms, global surveillance, and economic dependencies stand out as potential tools for global influence and control. The power of artificial intelligence and algorithms. One of the most striking modern phenomena is the role of artificial intelligence and data algorithms in shaping human behavior. Algorithms dictate what people see, read, and believe, influencing everything from politics to personal decisions. AI-driven automation is replacing traditional jobs, raising concerns about economic dependency on centralized systems. The increasing reliance on digital technology is shifting power away from individuals and toward major corporations and governments. The document questions: are we controlling AI, or is AI controlling us? The ability of machines to predict, suggest, and manipulate human choices could be an early form of the global control system described in Revelation. The emergence of a global economic system. Revelation 13 verses 16 to 17 states that no one will be able to buy or sell unless they have the mark of the beast. While this prophecy has often been debated, modern financial systems increasingly point toward a cashless society, where digital transactions and government oversight could enable economic control like never before. The rise of digital currencies and centralized banking systems raises questions about future economic restrictions. Financial crises and global economic instability may create a scenario where people willingly accept a universal financial system. Technology now allows for full financial tracking, making independent financial activity nearly impossible. While these advancements are not necessarily evil on their own, they demonstrate how a future leader could exert total economic influence, limiting trade and participation for those who refuse to comply with global mandates. Surveillance and the loss of privacy. One of the key characteristics of the final world system is universal oversight and control. Today, technology enables levels of surveillance that were unimaginable in previous centuries. Smartphones, security cameras, and biometric data collection ensure that almost every individual can be tracked. Governments and corporations already monitor public behavior and decision-making through AI-driven analytics. The integration of facial recognition and digital IDs could lead to a world where participation in society depends on one's alignment with a global system. The document highlights that this level of control was impossible in previous generations, reinforcing the idea that only now, in the 21st century, do we have the technological capacity to fulfill Revelation's prophecies. The world's increasing desire for a global leader. As crises escalate, whether economic, ecological, or geopolitical, there is a growing demand for global governance. The document presents a powerful analogy. The world is like a house filled with unsupervised children, running around with sharp objects, fire, and explosives. What does a house like this need? An adult to take control. In this analogy, the adult that many people may seek could be the very leader the Bible warns about, the Antichrist. The increasing instability in cybersecurity, rising cyber attacks, and digital terrorism, environmental disasters, climate change, and ecological crises, economic uncertainty, inflation, unemployment, and financial collapse, terrorism, and global conflicts, all create conditions where people might willingly accept a central authority that promises stability, even at the cost of personal freedoms. Conclusion: a unique era in history. While previous generations have faced wars, pandemics, and crises, never before has there been such a level of global interconnectedness and technological control. The document highlights that even past global events, like the world wars, were not truly worldwide in the way modern issues are. COVID-19 demonstrated how the entire world could be simultaneously impacted. Every country, rich and poor, had to follow the same protocols. The internet has erased national barriers, creating an information network that can be used for good or manipulation. Surveillance and AI have given unprecedented power to those who control technology. The question is no longer if a global leader could arise, but rather when. The final events described in the Bible require a truly global system, and modern advancements indicate that such a system is closer than ever. In the next section, we will explore how universal crises may soon lead to a final world order and the fulfillment of the last biblical prophecies. Universal crises requiring global governance. As we analyze the modern world through the lens of biblical prophecy, one of the most striking aspects is the presence of global crises that seem to demand a centralized form of governance. Unlike in previous eras, today's challenges are truly worldwide in scale, affecting every nation, economy, and population group. The document identifies several key issues that could serve as catalysts for a future universal leadership, aligning with the prophetic descriptions of the Antichrist's rule in the final days. 1. The unregulated power of the internet. One of the most defining aspects of modern society is the internet's uncontrollable expansion. While it has provided countless benefits, it has also introduced new risks. Cyberterrorism. Hackers and criminal organizations have the ability to disrupt national economies, government infrastructures, and even global financial markets. Misinformation and manipulation. Digital platforms are used to spread false narratives, shaping political and social beliefs. Privacy concerns. Governments and corporations have access to massive amounts of personal data, raising ethical concerns about surveillance and freedom. Despite these challenges, there is no single governing body that regulates the internet on a global scale. This leaves room for the emergence of a future system that could impose strict digital control, fulfilling the prophetic framework of a universal monitoring system. 2. The threat of cyber attacks and digital warfare. The rise of cyber warfare has exposed the fragility of modern infrastructures. The document points out that a single, well-coordinated cyber attack could cripple banking systems, energy grids, or healthcare services worldwide. Financial markets are vulnerable. A major cyber attack on stock exchanges could trigger an economic collapse. Essential services depend on digital security. Electricity, transportation, and even food distribution now rely on the internet. Governments lack control. There is no international system to regulate cyber threats, leaving every country exposed. The increasing dependency on digital currencies and online transactions further amplifies the risk. If a universal economic authority were to rise, controlling financial access through digital means, it could create the exact conditions described in Revelation 13 verses 16 to 17, where no one can buy or sell without approval from a central power. 3. Global economic instability and market volatility. Economic uncertainty is another factor driving the desire for international financial control. The document highlights the collapse of stock markets that can affect even those with no direct investments, the dependency on international trade, which makes local economies vulnerable to global shifts, the push for digital currencies, which could enable a more centralized system of economic regulation. Today, financial crashes in Tokyo, New York, or London can have instant consequences for people all over the world, even in countries that are not directly involved in global markets. This interconnection makes the idea of a global economic authority more appealing, setting the stage for a future world leader to take control of financial stability. 4. Environmental crises and global responsibility. The document also points to ecological disasters as another factor that could justify the rise of a centralized global authority. Deforestation and climate change affect all nations, but who is responsible for solving them? Natural disasters are becoming more severe, requiring worldwide cooperation for relief efforts. Governments are divided, with some denying the extent of environmental threats while others demand urgent action. The question is, to whom does the Earth belong? If a single global power were to emerge, claiming to be the protector of nature and demanding worldwide compliance with environmental policies, it could be seen as the ultimate solution to a shared crisis. 5. The unchecked growth of the global arms and drug trade. The illegal trade of weapons and drugs continues to thrive, despite international efforts to combat it. The document points out that terrorist groups can easily access weapons, destabilizing entire regions. Drug cartels operate beyond national borders, making it impossible for a single country to stop them. Corruption allows these industries to thrive, with financial power influencing governments and law enforcement. Again, there is no universal system that effectively regulates these issues. A leader who promises to eradicate global crime could gain massive support, particularly if people are willing to surrender personal freedoms in exchange for security and stability. A world in desperate need of a leader. The document draws a powerful analogy between today's world and a chaotic house full of unsupervised children, playing with knives, fire, and explosives. What does such a house need? An authority figure to take control. This analogy perfectly illustrates why the world may soon welcome a single leader with open arms. Unlike previous generations, which dealt with localized conflicts, today's crises demand global solutions, and those solutions may come at a high price. Conclusion: preparing for the final system. The Bible describes a future where a central authority will emerge, governing the world's economy, security, and religious allegiance. Looking at the current state of the world, we can see how the foundation is being laid for such a system. The internet and digital control, a new form of governance, may be needed to regulate information. Cyber threats and digital warfare. Governments may seek a global security system. Financial instability. A unified economic system could bring stability, but also control. Environmental responsibility. A world leader could impose global environmental laws. Crime and security concerns. The need for safety may lead to mass surveillance and global law enforcement. Each of these elements moves humanity closer to a world that matches the biblical description of the end times. In the next section, we will explore how the prophecies in the book of Revelation indicate that this system is not only inevitable but imminent. The book of Revelation and the final events. The book of Revelation presents a vivid and detailed prophecy about the final moments of human history. It describes a world under the rule of a powerful global system, where spiritual deception, economic control, and political domination culminate in the greatest crisis ever faced by humanity. The document highlights how modern developments, globalization, digital surveillance, artificial intelligence, and economic centralization align with biblical prophecies. However, Revelation also provides a clear picture of the ultimate divine intervention, revealing that despite the rise of evil forces, God will have the final victory. 1. The universal impact of the Antichrist's rule. Revelation chapter 13 describes the Antichrist's control over the world, where every nation is forced into submission. Verses 7 to 8 state, "It was given power to wage war against God's holy people and to conquer them. And it was given authority over every tribe, people, language, and nation. All inhabitants of the earth will worship the beast, all whose names have not been written in the Lamb's book of life." This prophecy emphasizes two critical points. The Antichrist will have global authority. There will be no safe nation or isolated group unaffected by his influence. True believers will resist, but they will face intense persecution for refusing to submit. The document stresses that this universal influence was impossible in past generations. However, today, technology allows for complete global surveillance, economic control, and manipulation of information, making the fulfillment of this prophecy more plausible than ever. 2. The false religious system and global worship. Beyond political and economic control, the Antichrist's influence will extend into the spiritual realm. Revelation 13 verses 12 to 14 describes the rise of a second beast, who enforces worldwide worship of the first beast, the Antichrist. This second entity, often referred to as the false prophet, will deceive the world through miraculous signs. It performed great signs, even causing fire to come down from heaven to the earth in full view of the people. Because of the signs it was given power to perform on behalf of the first beast, it deceived the inhabitants of the earth. The document raises an essential question. How can the world be deceived on such a large scale? The rise of artificial intelligence and digital manipulation could create false miracles through advanced technology. Media and social platforms already control narratives, shaping public belief systems. A growing desire for unity and tolerance could lead to a single global religious movement, forcing compliance in the name of peace. This passage suggests that the final conflict will not just be political, it will be a battle for spiritual allegiance. 3. The mark of the beast and global economic control. One of the most well-known and debated prophecies is the mark of the beast, described in Revelation 13 verses 16 to 17. It also forced all people, great and small, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive a mark on their right hands or on their foreheads, so that they could not buy or sell unless they had the mark, which is the name of the beast or the number of its name. This prophecy indicates a universal economic system where financial transactions will be restricted to those who comply with the Antichrist's rule. The document identifies modern parallels that could lead to such a system. The increasing shift toward digital currencies and cashless transactions. The rise of AI-driven financial monitoring, where every purchase can be tracked. The potential use of biometric identification or digital implants for economic access. While the exact nature of the mark of the beast remains speculative, the reality is that the infrastructure for such a system is already being developed. The world is moving towards centralized financial control, where access to commerce can be granted or denied based on compliance. 4. The fall of Babylon and God's ultimate victory. Despite the rise of evil forces, Revelation also declares the fall of Babylon, symbolizing the collapse of the Antichrist's empire. In Revelation 18 verses 1 to 2, an angel proclaims, "Fallen, fallen is Babylon the Great. She has become a dwelling for demons and a haunt for every impure spirit." This passage foretells the complete destruction of the global system that opposes God. The document connects this prophecy to a final moment of divine intervention, where the corruption, deception, and oppression of the Antichrist's rule will come to an end. 5. The second coming of Christ and the final judgment. The culmination of Revelation is the second coming of Jesus Christ, described in Revelation 19 verses 11 to 16. Christ will return, not as a suffering servant, but as a victorious king, defeating the Antichrist and his followers. I saw heaven standing open, and there before me was a white horse, whose rider is called Faithful and True. With justice he judges and wages war. Revelation 19 verse 11. This moment signifies the end of human rebellion and the beginning of Christ's eternal kingdom. The document emphasizes that, while the world is heading toward a final crisis, believers should not fear, because God has already revealed the outcome. The Antichrist's rule will be temporary. The deception of the false prophet will be exposed. The global system of control will fall. Christ will return in glory and establish his reign. Conclusion: the signs are clear. Are we ready? The book of Revelation presents a clear sequence of events that lead to the ultimate fulfillment of biblical prophecy. As we observe modern developments, digital control, artificial intelligence, economic instability, and spiritual deception, it is evident that the stage is being set for the final events. The document urges believers to stay vigilant, recognizing the signs unfolding before us. Remain faithful, not being deceived by false promises of peace and security. Spread the gospel, fulfilling Matthew 24 verse 14, ensuring the world hears the truth before the final moments. The question is no longer if these prophecies will be fulfilled, but when. And as Revelation promises, for those who remain faithful, he will wipe every tear from their eyes. There will be no more death, or mourning, or crying, or pain, for the old order of things has passed away. Revelation 21 verse 4. As we move forward, the next and final section will explore the call to action for today's believers, how we can prepare for what is coming and ensure we stand firm in our faith. Final conclusion. As we conclude this study, it is clear that we are living in an unprecedented time in human history. While past generations have anticipated the end times, never before have we seen such rapid advancements in technology, global governance, and digital control that could enable the fulfillment of biblical prophecy. Revelation describes a worldwide system of influence, where economic transactions, religious allegiance, and personal freedoms are all subject to a single authority. Today, we see the rise of artificial intelligence, digital finance, and global surveillance, creating a world where total control is not just possible, it is becoming increasingly inevitable. But the message of the Bible is not one of fear, it is one of hope and preparation. We now understand that wars and disasters alone are not the ultimate sign of the end. The true sign is the global preaching of the gospel. We recognize that the world is being conditioned to accept a leader who promises peace, stability, and security. The Bible warns us not to be deceived. We see that the prophecies of Revelation are unfolding, and our generation may be the one to witness the final events. The question is, are we ready? Jesus did not call us to live in fear, but to remain faithful and watchful. As Revelation assures us, the Antichrist's reign will be short-lived, and God's victory is already certain. The most important thing we can do now is stand firm in our faith, spread the truth of the gospel, and prepare for the glorious return of Christ. Behold, I am coming soon. Blessed is the one who keeps the words of the prophecy in this book. Revelation 22 verse 7. Thank you for being part of this discussion. If this message has impacted you, share it with others, leave your thoughts in the comments, and continue studying the Word of God. Until next time, stay vigilant, stay faithful, and keep your eyes on the signs of the times.